Today we will examine how DNA can help determine whether two individuals are siblings. Unlike paternity testing, where we compare a child with a known parent, siblingship testing compares two individuals whose parents may be unknown or unavailable. The central question is simple but powerful. Are these two individuals biologically related, or do they merely share common DNA markers by coincidence? By the end of this lecture, you will understand how forensic scientists use STR markers, allele sharing, and statistical tools like siblingship index to answer the question. In many legal cases, DNA must determine not just identity but family relationships. The issue may be whether two people share both biological parents, only one parent, or none at all. These questions arise in inheritance disputes, immigration petitions, child support cases, custody disputes, and even disaster victim identification. DNA siblingship testing becomes especially important when the parents are deceased or unavailable for testing. What are inherited? DNA inheritance follows a simple rule. Every person receives half of their DNA from their mother and half from their father. At each genetic location called a locus, a person has two alleles, one from each parent. For example, at the locus D3S1358, a person might have alleles 15 and 17. If 15 came from the father and 17 came from the mother, that pair forms the person's genotype at that locus. By comparing these alleles between individuals, we can detect patterns of inheritance that reveal biological relationships. How many alleles do full siblings share? Full siblings share the same two biological parents. Because of Mendelian inheritance, siblings can share 0, 1, or 2 alleles at any given locus. Sharing 0 alleles means each sibling inherited different alleles from both parents. Sharing 1 allele means they inherited the same allele from one parent. Sharing 2 alleles means both inherited identical alleles from both parents. This variability is why siblingship testing relies on statistics rather than simple matching. Take this case for an example. A father passed away leaving 30 million estate. Anna and Ben agree they are full siblings, which means they have the same mom and dad. Tony claims he is their half-brother, sharing the same father. Anna and Ben disagree. Tony files a claim against the estate and the court orders a siblingship DNA test. The table shows that the DNA result. Is Tony really their half-brother? This table illustrates how siblings may share alleles at different loci. Notice that at some loci, the siblings share one allele. At the others, they share two, and in one case, they share one. This mixture is normal for full siblings. A key point here is that allele sharing alone does not prove siblingships. We must analyze the probability of these patterns occurring under different hypotheses. The siblingship index tells us how many times more likely the DNA results would occur if the two persons were siblings rather than unrelated individuals. To evaluate siblingship scientifically, forensic genetics uses the siblingship index. The siblingship index is a likelihood ratio that compares two hypotheses. The first hypothesis is that the individuals are full siblings. The second hypothesis is that they are unrelated individuals from the same population. The siblingship index tells us how much more likely the observed DNA pattern is under one hypothesis than the other. The formula is straightforward. The numerator is the probability of the observed DNA profiles if the individuals are siblings. The denominator is the probability of observing those same profiles if they are unrelated. If the ratio is greater than 1, the DNA evidence supports siblingship. If it's less than 1, the evidence supports unrelatedness. Siblingship indices. When parents are unavailable, we compute a siblingship index at each genetic locus. We first observe how many alleles the two individuals share at that locus. Then we incorporate population allele frequencies to determine how common those alleles are. Rare shared alleles provide stronger evidence of relatedness than very common ones. The statistical model used for siblingship testing is based on identity by descent or IBD. Full siblings may share two alleles identical by descent, one allele identical by descent, or none. The probabilities for these states are 25% for two shared alleles, 50% for one shared allele, and 25% for none. This slide shows how we calculate probabilities when siblings share one allele, identical by descent. The formulas incorporate allele frequencies from the population and the expected inheritance patterns under the sibling hypothesis. Identity by descent refers to a genetic situation where two individuals possess the same allele because they inherited it from a common ancestor, usually a parent. In forensic genetics, IBD is crucial in kinship analysis because it explains why related individuals tend to share alleles more often than unrelated individuals. IBD must be distinguished from identity by state or IBS. Alleles are IBS if they are identical in sequence but not necessarily inherited from the same ancestor. For example, two unrelated persons might both have allele 15 at the locus simply because that allele is common in the population. That situation is IBS but not IBD. IBD states between two individuals. These states describe how much genetic material comes from the same parents. At any locus, two individuals may share 0, 1, or 2 alleles, identical by descent. These states are labeled IBD0, IBD1, and IBD2, the numbers referring to the shared alleles or none at all. These categories form the foundation of kinship probability calculations. Why the IBD distribution differs by relationship. For full siblings, the IBD probabilities follow the classical distribution of 25% for IBD2, 50% for IBD1, and 25% for IBD0. This distribution arises from Mendelian inheritance of parental chromosomes. Half-siblings, on the other hand, share only one parent. Therefore, they cannot share two alleles, identical by descent at the same locus. Their probabilities are 50% for sharing one allele and 50% for sharing none. For unrelated individuals, there is no shared ancestor in the relevant genealogical time frame. So, IBD2 and IBD1 has zero probability for unrelated individuals. Any allele sharing between unrelated persons occurs only because of population allele frequencies, not inheritance from a common parent. Why do we even compute a siblingship index? Up to this point, we have discussed inheritance patterns and allele sharing. But the question naturally arises, why do we need to compute anything at all? If two people share several alleles, can we not simply conclude that they are siblings? The answer is no. DNA alleles exist in the population, and unrelated individuals may share alleles purely by coincidence. Therefore, the central question in forensic genetics is always probabilistic. Is the observed DNA pattern more likely if these individuals are siblings or if they are unrelated? The siblingship index is simply a way of expressing that comparison numerically. It tells us how much more likely the evidence is under the sibling hypothesis than under the unrelated hypothesis. Example, Nico and Naya's DNA profiles. Let us now look at a concrete example involving Nico and Naya. Their DNA profiles are compared across several STR loci. At each locus, we observed whether they share 0, 1, or 2 alleles. Each of these outcomes carries different evidentiary weight. Sharing 2 alleles strongly suggests common ancestry. Sharing 1 allele provides moderate support. Sharing no alleles weakens the sibling hypothesis. But we must remember that the strength of the evidence also depends on how common the shared allele is in the population. If the allele is extremely common, many unrelated individuals may share it. If it is rare, sharing it becomes. Let's take for an example, Nico and Naya's DNA profiles. Let us now look at a concrete example where their DNA profiles are compared across several STR loci. At each locus, we observe whether they share 0, 1, or 2 alleles. Each of these outcomes carries different evidentiary weight. Sharing 2 alleles strongly suggests common ancestry. Sharing 1 allele provides moderate support. And sharing no alleles weakens the sibling hypothesis. But we must remember that the strength of the evidence also depends on how common the shared allele is in the population. If the allele is extremely common, many unrelated individuals may share it. If it is rare, sharing it becomes more significant. Case 1. Here's a case where there is one shared allele between Nico and Nathan. So what does this mean? We take as an example a particular locus D21S11, with Nico having the alleles 29 and 31 while Nathan has 29 and 32. And here they have a shared allele which is 29 base repeats. The frequency of the allele is 0.05. So in computing the siblingship index, we come up with the answer of 2.75. Let's take case number 2. And we take a particular locus D5S818, where Nico has the alleles 12 and 13 and Naya has the alleles 12 and 13. Now let's compute this by component. Let's take first the component of IBD2, where they share 12 and 13 alleles, with the frequency of the allele 12 as 0.17 in the population and the frequency of the allele 13 as 0.19 in the general population. Now, in computing for the probability of IBD2, we come up with an answer or a product of 0.0646. Let's remember that. Now again, in the STR locus D5S818, we compute for the probability of IBD1, which has a different formula. And the product is 0.1163. Let's remember that again. Now, we also compute for the IBD0 component, which is the same as if they are not related. And the computation for this is 0.00417. Now, let's compute for the siblingship index. And the general formula is we combine for full siblingship index 0.25 times IBD1 plus 0.5 times IBD2 plus 0.25 for IBD0. So we'll just substitute based on our previous computations. And the answer is 0.02301. Now in computing for the siblingship index, we just make a ratio. So siblingship index, we take the probability for full siblingship, which is 0.02301 as we have computed, divided it by the probability of unrelatedness, which is 0.00417, with the siblingship index equivalent to 5.52. Now, how do we interpret this? When two alleles are shared, the siblingship index is usually much larger than 1 because that pattern is far more likely among siblings than unrelated persons. Now, case number 3. There is no shared alleles, like in the case of Nico and Matthew, where in the particular locus, for example, D13S317, Nico has 8-9 while Matthew has 10-11. So, we can see that they have no shared allele. And the allele frequencies of this particular based repeats are for allele 8, it's 0.11. For allele 9, it's 0.21. For allele 10, it's 0.17. And for allele 11, it's 0.10. What's the probability if unrelated? So again, there is a formula for this. And if computed for, the product is 0.034. No? Now, we compute, when we compute it, the final product for this is 0.00157. So in case number 3, um, to compute for the probability of full siblingship, we multiply 0.25 times the probability for unrelatedness, which is 0.157, which we have computed. And the final product is 0.0003925. Now, to compute for the siblingship index, we divide the probability for full siblingship, which is 0.0003925 by 0.00157. And the answer is 0.25. So, what does this mean? This means that a locus with no shared alleles produces a siblingship index of 0.25, which means the DNA evidence at that locus is 4 times more likely if the individuals are unrelated than if they are full siblings. So, by way of a summary, if the genotype pattern is 2 shared alleles, the siblingship index often is more than 4, which shows that they have an 4 times more likelihood that they're siblings as compared with another person from the general population. So for a genotype pattern of 1 shared allele, like in the case of Nico and Nathan, the siblingship index is around 0.8 to 3. So this is just typical. No? So as compared with 2 shared alleles, the 1 shared allele would tend to give a lower probability. And lastly, the no shared alleles, like in the case of Nico and Matthew, where the SI is 0.25. So it's 4 times more unlikely that Nico and Matthew is related as siblings. Now, the combined siblingship index, we're just computing at a particular locus. So, in other words, if you have 20 loci that you have analyzed as our STR markers, which is the most common nowadays, then for each locus with the siblingship index, you multiply all those 20 loci, no? Siblingship index to come up with the combined siblingship index, or the CSI. So it is the overall genetic weight of evidence obtained by multiplying this loci, no? The SI in this loci. So in real forensic testing, the CSI multiplies this value. So loci with 2 shared alleles increases the CSI, while loci with no shared alleles decreases it. The final CSI reflects the balance of evidence across all markers. So in practice, forensic laboratories interpret the combined siblingship index using likelihood ratios. A very large value strongly supports the sibling hypothesis. A value near 1 indicates inconclusive evidence, and a very small value supports the unrelated hypothesis. So courts consider this value alongside other evidence such as family testimony, documents, and other biological tests. In sum, as we come to the end of this discussion, I want you to remember something important. Forensic DNA analysis is not about memorizing formulas. It is about understanding how biology, probability, and law intersect to reveal truth. When we analyze sibling-ship DNA, we are not simply comparing numbers in a laboratory report. We are evaluating whether two individuals share a biological history, whether they come from the same family line or whether the similarities we see are merely coincidence. Throughout this presentation, we learned that siblings may share 0, 1, or 2 alleles at any given locus. We saw that allele frequencies in the population matter because rare shared alleles carry stronger evidentiary weight than common ones. We also saw how the concept of identity by descent helps us distinguish between true biological inheritance and mere similarity in DNA profiles. These biological ideas are then translated into the language of law through the sibling-ship index and the combined sibling-ship index. The most important takeaway is this: DNA evidence in kinship cases is not a simple match or no match. Instead, it is a structured comparison of probabilities. We ask a single question again and again across many genetic markers. Is this pattern more likely if the individuals are siblings or if they are unrelated? By combining the evidence from multiple loci, we transform biological observations into scientifically grounded legal evidence. So, for you future lawyers, the goal is not to become forensic geneticists. Rather, it is to develop the ability to understand what the numbers mean, to question how conclusions were reached, and to explain the strength or the limits of DNA evidence in court. When you see sibling-ship index or a likelihood ratio in a case file, you should now understand the reasoning behind it. Ultimately, forensic DNA analysis is a powerful example of how science can assist the justice system. When interpreted correctly, it can help establish family relationships, resolve disputes, reunite families, and ensure that legal decisions are based on objective biological evidence. That is why understanding the whys and wherefores behind the computations matters. So the next time you encounter a DNA kinship report in practice, remember this lecture. Behind every number is a biological story, and behind every biological story is a legal question waiting to be answered. And that is the real lesson of sibling-ship DNA. Science does not replace the law, but when properly understood, it helps the law move closer to the truth. That's the end of the presentation.